Hello Musketeers, I am Brandon Product, and I am joined here today by NIEUWOUDT, I'm sorry, I totally just asked you that. And I am playing Novus AEterno, a game by Tatali Studios, which I believe you are the head of the studio, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they've been working on this game for 7 years, which is a fairly impressive amount of time, and it's definitely paid off from what I've seen. And so we're currently at the very first screen of the game, selecting our race, and since this is I believe a beta, or would you call it alpha? Alpha?
I'd more call it alpha.
You'd more call it alpha? Alright. There's only one race we can select from, but there are going to be 4, if I'm correct. Five.
Four additional races.
4 additional, yeah, so 5 total. So I need to select an avatar. I like this elderly guy with the giant beard, I'm not gonna lie.
He's awesome. Beards make your spaceships go faster.
Exactly, that's my thought. Alright, it's username, same as usual, random product. Alright, and then just enter game. So this is an MMO RTS, correct?
Yes. In the truest sense of the term, it is one massive, never-ending RTS map.
That is...
Nothing fancy, no instances, nothing divided up, no sectors, just one huge, never-ending map.
That's impressive. So are you going to be hosting this all in one server, or are you dividing it?
Our server architecture is incredibly complicated and just bizarre. I think our server engineer just had way too much fun adding in more servers for everything. So right now what you're playing on is actually an infrastructure that is comprised of about 15 different servers that all do different things. Some do AI, some do basic like game cycle threads of building stuff and your research timers. Others do login, account verification, your player databases, all sorts of things combined together. And the reason for this is that each galaxy, which is a single RTS map, which you'll get a rough idea of the scale of in a moment, is a individual server. And they do have borders. And you can fit about, like, we're aiming to fit about 10 to 30,000 players per galaxy. That's one RTS map.
That is impressive.
But what we want to do is that there'll be multiple galaxies, but you can actually warp speed to another galaxy. So it will be a set of maps in a sense, each map being able to fit 10 to 30,000 players, but your empire could stretch across multiple galaxies at the same time. And the client can link into multiple galaxy servers at one time. So effectively it is never-endingly massive.
That is amazing. I'm excited to explore that. But now we're in the map area, so yes. What am I doing?
So this is the surface of your home planet. If you go down and to the right a little bit by left-clicking and dragging, you should see a Necromunda-esque building, which is your planetary HQ. Now this has pretty much all the basics that you require. It has a mini ship port, mini spaceport, mini warehouse, all that stuff. But if you really want to actually get anywhere in the game, you need to build some additional buildings. So on the right tab, the third button down is called Build Sector. Go ahead and click on that.
Okay.
And you're going to want to double click on the warehouse. And then a hex grid should show up.
Yep.
Which is the footprint of the building, and then just go ahead and click anywhere, and it will begin construction of that building.
Alright.
While that's going, you can begin construction of your next building, which will probably be a factory, and then just follow the same routine there.
Oh my god, I'm loving this building animation.
Yes. One thing that Tatali Studios believes very heavily in is explosions. Like explosions. Like everything has explosions. Marketing messages have explosions. Everything is better. Build stuff, explosions.
Diplomacy is better with explosions.
Diplomacy is better with explosions. Alright, so and then, so you have a warehouse and a factory so far.
Yep.
You'll probably build a shipyard and a market. Oh, and actually a laboratory. Now, right now, this is a development server, which means construction times are sped up quite a bit, just so it's a bit easier to get into the game and like actually test the features. The build times will be a bit longer in the final game, but even though this is an MMO, the progression in the game is much more akin to an RTS in the sense that it doesn't take you a week to build a fleet. Like, you can build an entire fleet, completely max out your population cap on warships, go have them all destroyed, and build up another fleet in one game session in a matter of less than an hour if you have your empire set up nicely.
Yeah.
So it is really trying to get where it is an action RTS on an MMO scale. It's not like it takes you 2 months to build up a fleet and then they all get destroyed in a day. We want people to go out and fight battles. We want there to be lots of combat. We want there to be the ability to do something, have it go wrong, and not really be that big of a deal. You know, there's trial and error. Things move quickly.
Yeah. It's definitely what everyone wants, tue, so.
Yeah, and also, I come from playing StarCraft primarily, and Command and Conquer games, and from that, it's when you have that rapid ability to produce units, it changes the gameplay significantly in a persistent game like this, because you're more open to going to war with someone because it doesn't cost you months and months of work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, interesting. One of the cool things that really happens out, because you have a persistent empire. I mean, your planets always exist in the game. Because of that, people actually think a lot more diplomatically, because going to war with someone is okay, it's not a big deal. But if you really piss someone off to the point of turning them into a mortal enemy, you're kind of screwed, because they know where your empire is, and they can just keep on attacking you and keep on making your life hell. So it's interesting, we get like this aggression, like a lot of aggression with our alpha testers between each other, but at the same time it's like, you know, polite British aggression. Well, they'll be aggression, they'll go to war with you, but it's like they're still prim and proper about it, because they don't want to piss you off so much that you just like don't care about anything except making their lives hell. So it's actually been odd, but so far there's been a lot less trolling in the game, because you really like making a mortal enemy is really something you want to avoid. Going to war with someone's okay, but making a mortal enemy, that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Alright, so do you have those buildings built now?
They're all done.
Okay, cool. So the first thing let's do is let us design a ship. So go ahead and double click on the shipyard building, which is the one with like the floating platform above it.
Got it.
And a interface should open up on the right that says, that like has a bunch of circles in it.
Yeah.
Okay. At the top there, you'll see a button that says Ship Designer.
Ooh.
So, in this game, there is absolutely no preset units. There's absolutely nothing. The way it works is we give you base hulls for your ships. That's what you see on this first page. And a hull is literally just a block of metal and ceramics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And each one of these, it has like weapons 2, engines 5, shields 1. Those are the different slots that hull has. So go ahead and select a hull. Personally, I find that was the Battleship Mark II? No, Battleship Mark 1. No, Battleship Mark II. Yeah. Battleship Mark II is a nice kind of versatile hull that I can show you a lot of different things with. So you select that hull, and you see on the top left, you'll see a little bit of the blueprint of what the hull looks like in space. And then on the bottom left, there's just so many really detailed statistics that no one except EVE Online players will actually pay attention to.
So many numbers.
Right. There's lots of numbers. Okay, so next, if you look on the top, there is like tabs that say hull, weapons, engine, shields. In the designing of a ship, you go from the left to the right of all those tabs. So then click on your weapon tab, and here you will see on the left a list of all of the weapons that you have researched, and then on the right is a list of all of the weapon slots on the hull. Now, if you notice, the hull has primary weapon frontal primary weapon slots, frontal secondary slots, left secondary slots, stuff like that. So this hull, if you notice, like you have quite a bit of frontal primary slots, but you have no left and right primary slots, only left and right secondary slots. So this ship can do a lot of DPS head-on, but it doesn't really have much protection on its flanks. Yeah. But secondary weapons can be pretty good for shooting down fighters and missiles and stuff like that. So this would be a pretty good thing to have like just behind your front line, just try and make sure it doesn't get flanked, but would be good like for a missile cruiser, stuff like that. So then what you do, go ahead and click and drag in some of the components into the slots. Personally, I like the Model 280 Harlan. It is just, that cannon does so much alpha damage. It has a really low reload time and stuff, but it just does so much alpha damage, it's beautiful.
I'm going to put that on there, but you also said that it's a great missile cruiser, so I'm going to put some missiles on there.
Yeah, go ahead and throw in some more.
Gonna need some missiles.
Yeah. Okay, now, while I'm doing this, one thing I should note is that in the top left above the design of the ship that's rotating, it'll say total cost, and that says CP is the first one. Now, CP is a complicated form of a population cap, where every weapon, every engine, every hull costs some CP. Now, the reason for this is because it is an RTS, we wanted to make progression not linear in the sense of most RTSs and MMOs, where the later in the tech you get, the better things get. Because then if someone joined the game a month after someone else, they will always lose to them.
Yeah.
So it is that, I'll explain research in a moment, but before I get into that, every weapon, the better it is, or the better a hull is, the more CP it costs. So no matter what, all military forces, from a player who just joined the game to one who's been in for 5 years, have the same potential to produce the same amount of military units at any time.
That's a pretty good design. It's a lot better than... As I come from the kind of the StarCraft gaming, I don't, like, balance is the most important thing in an RTS. So, working your way back along those tabs, next is engines. Now, an important thing, do not forget to put engines on a ship. The game is not very forgiving in that case, and you will just be launching a floating space station. Alright.
And then in utilities, I recommend putting 1 FTL assembly and 1 offensive troop transport, troop drop pod, and then under bays, put an offensive troop transport.
And then shields? Oh, there are no shields.
At the moment, you haven't researched any shields yet.
Gotcha.
Now, what you've just designed here is the most jack-of-all-trades spaceship, and I would never recommend doing this if you're trying to be, like, competitive in the game, because it ended up costing a lot of CP. It's 1,320 CP, and your max CP is 50,000. So this is a really expensive ship because you have a little bit of everything, whereas realistically, you don't really need an offensive troop transport bay on a missile frigate, because the missile frigate's never actually going to go to colonize another planet. It stays way at the back.
Yeah.
So you do, when you're playing competitive, you'll be min-maxing your ships a lot more and having specific roles for specific designs. But right now, just to get you, to explain all the basic features, we'll go with this. Now go ahead and click the Save Design at the bottom, and put in a name.
Name, I'll just put that battleship. I'm not going to be creative with this one.
Okay, so now once that's saved, go ahead and click the back button, which is the top one on the left that looks like fast forwards.
Wait, what?
Go ahead and click the back button, which on the right set of buttons, the one at the very top, that looks like fast forwards. We put the button backwards when we were designing the UI.
Oh, nice.
So now at the top of this interface, which is the one that you were looking at before, theoretically, you should have a select ship design at the top.
No,
just next to the ship designer button. Oh, in that case, just go ahead and click on your planet surface again to close all the interfaces, and double-click on the shipyard again. And then at the top there, you'll have a select ship like drop-down list.
Okay.
Then go ahead and select the ship you made.
Yep.
And then click build in the bottom right. And you can spam the build button to build multiple ships. The reason we set it up like this instead of clicking on the exact ships you want is most likely when you're producing a ship, you won't be producing just one of them. Like you'll need 10 more missile frigates. So with this kind of system of building ship, it's really easy to spam like 10 missile frigates and then go and spam 18 of another ship and stuff like that, instead of needing to go through a list and just build them one at a time. So as your ships are now starting production, I'll explain a bit of how ships are produced. If you look on the left side, just underneath the icon of the building on this interface, you'll see warehouse, factory, vault, stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead and click on factory. Now, how it works is the first thing that happens when you're building a ship is that a factory starts constructing its components, which are the engines, the shields, all the stuff, weapons, everything. And then once it's finished constructing those, go ahead and click on the warehouse just above it and scroll down a bit. Once it's finished constructing those items, they get sent to the warehouse and they're stored there until you have all the items required to actually build the ship. Now, right now, this doesn't matter that much to us, but as you start building a bigger empire, completed ships cost CP, but weapons and shields in your warehouse do not. So players stockpile the weapons, the engines, the shields that they know they like to use a lot into their warehouses, and that reduces the construction time of their ships drastically. Also, this is one of the primary elements of where economic players come in, because an economic player can trade you a specific engine that you really like. He can just trade you like 10,000 of those engines per day, and you can in return pay him for it, or in return help defend his trade routes, whatever you see fit. But because you can't really do everything always, you have to kind of like prioritize what do you want to focus on. You want to focus on the economic elements, the military elements, because you only have so much space to put so many buildings per planet. So now, if you scroll on that same list on the left, you should have a spaceport. Go ahead and click on your spaceport.
Got 2 ships ready in there.
Yeah.
4
Now
ships
your spaceport is where you resupply your ships, where you dock them, where you repair them, where you can eventually change the crews on your ships, which is one of our stretch goals on Kickstarter. So instead of like most RTSs, units can gain veterancies, whereas in this we want to actually have the crews of the units gain veterancies, so you can move them between ships. So if you have like an amazing crew on like a Corvette, you can promote that crew up to be running a Dreadnought or something now, so that you get more out of their skills. So first thing we're going to do right now is just start launching the ships into space. Go ahead and you can highlight a ship, and then click the launch in the bottom right, and it will launch the ship into space. You can also, there's a little button right next to the launch that says auto launch, which will automatically launch all of your ships into space.
Alright.
As soon as they're completed being built. And now that concludes how to design ships. Now the fun part, let's go blow stuff up with.
One question though. With the auto launch, is there any sort of disadvantage to that, or is there any reason to not have that on at all times?
Yes, because otherwise, when you dock a ship onto a planet to repair it or resupply it or just hide it from enemy fire, it will launch back into space again instantly.
Ah, okay.
So, so if you do want to dock to repair a ship, remember to turn off auto launch. Okay, but that pretty much gets everything. So go ahead and click escape, and you will enter space. Or you'll close the interface and then click it again, and you'll enter space.
Either one. Ooh.
So this is your home planet. Thank you. Now, unit controls work the same as a typical RTS, where left-click and drag to select units, right-click to give them an order. At the moment, when you've finished constructing units, they all launch right on top of each other, directly on top of your planet. But you get the idea. Now, first thing I like going to is that there's 3 different speeds in the game for ships. There's the default combat speed, which is what they're moving at right now. Then if you select your ships and press T, they enter travel speed, which they'll move about 5 times the speed, but they have no weapons and no shields, and if they get shot, they immediately drop out of travel speed and back into combat speed. But it makes it a bit easier to kind of show off ship movement and stuff. Now, as this is 3D space, we have added in inertial movement. So if you select one of your ships and right-click to make them move somewhere, they'll just move like a normal RTS unit. If you right-click, drag, and hold, right-click and drag your mouse, you'll see a little hologram of the ship show up of which direction you want it to face. And what the ship's AI will do is it will try and get to that position in the most efficient way possible. Which typically means if you tell it to move like far in front of where it is and to the left, it will accelerate until it reaches its max speed and then rotate to the left and drift to its final position. Which means you can actually strafe enemy fleets and stuff with your ships.
Nice.
You can also make them like reverse or strafe to the left or right just by selecting a ship and telling it to move like to the left of your ship while maintaining the same heading, and they'll just drift sideways. But your movement speed is significantly reduced. Your movement speed is like a quartered if you're drifting sideways, and it's like an eighth if you're trying to reverse. But you do maintain inertia, so if you speed up going straight, then rotate, you will continue moving at that original speed. Other important things about the units. If you select one of your units, you should notice a lot of like greenish fire arcs that come up. Those are the fire arcs of all of the weapons on the ships. That's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Now, one important thing to note is that typically more powerful weapons have much narrower fire arcs and better ranges. But if you take one of your ships, you can left-click, and if you select a ship, you can left-click and drag in a direction to tell it to rotate. And now, the battleships are actually fairly good at rotating, but when you get stuff like dreadnoughts, they are painstakingly slow to rotate, and you can be destroyed by tiny corvettes just because you can never get... They'll just stay behind you. All ships have a blind spot in their rear 90 degrees. No weapons can be placed in the rear 90 degrees of a ship. So if you micromanage your units properly and can always try and stay in the blind spots of enemy ships, it can be incredibly advantageous. Other important thing is all units have directional armor, and that is dependent on the hulls themselves. So For example, this class is a fairly good all-around ship where its frontal, side, and rear armor is pretty balanced. But there's some ships like the Dreadnought Mark I, which have insane frontal armor and horrible side and rear armor. So that's all just about learning the ships and learning how you like to play. Also, I just realized I didn't explain this very well. WASD moves the camera around space, or moving the mouse to the side of the screen. Mouse wheel zoom in and out, and holding down mouse wheel and moving your mouse rotates your camera in full 3D to like see the rest of space and stuff.
You know, I was kind of sitting there thinking, like, how do I move the camera? And it didn't even occur to me to press WASD.
Yeah, that comes from, I mean, what I try to, I mean, as I've been playing RTS games since, like, I was 5, I think, like, I kind of took the elements that I liked about games the most. And the one thing that I really enjoyed about the Total War series and Men of War specifically is having an RTS game where you control the camera with WASD is incredibly helpful, especially in games where unit positioning is so critical. Because for unit positioning, you really need to use your mouse solely for controlling your units. You can't really use the mouse also for moving around the galaxy, otherwise it's too many actions you're trying to do with just that one utensil.
Yeah, then it just gets confusing.
Yeah. So you can also move by just moving your mouse up against the edges of your screen, but the game is designed to use WASD.
Feels a lot better to do it that way, too.
And then holding down middle mouse button to look around. Just space is pretty. Now, the one thing you will notice is that units do move on a 2D axis. We tried so hard to make it full 3D, but the basic issue is that when you add in fire arcs, directional armor, custom designed units, and all that stuff, having full 3D unit control becomes so complicated that it actually removes a lot of the tactical elements to the game instead of adding more. Because it's so complicated that people can't actually micromanage their fleets to do any kind of creative tactics. They end up just making a blob that comes from above or below. And so to try and avoid that and try and still motivate people to create kind of interesting tactics and strategies, we want to simplify it and maintain it on just 2 planes. But I mean, at this, the original build of the game did have full 3D, but we realized that it just became impossible to manage your units properly, especially with inertial drift and all that. Spaceships just ended up like whizzing off into space, and you had no idea how to get them to stop crashing into planets and stuff. It was quite catastrophic.
I'm trying to remember. There was some RTS game that used full 3D space, and I honestly just never got a good feel for it because it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, there was Homeworld is the main one that comes to mind. And
Yeah.
now, I mean, I love Homeworld. I still play Homeworld even now. But the thing about Homeworld that made it, I mean, it was even, like, Homeworld's incredibly complicated, but even in that, there's pre-built units, and they are very straightforward. There's not many fire arcs or directional armor, stuff like that you need to worry about. But even in that game, it was incredibly complicated. And we feel like, as it's an MMO, we really want to add a lot more unit customizability to it. And if you're, and it chances are it was one or the other. We couldn't have 3D space and unit customizability, otherwise it just became way too much to try and keep in your head.
Yeah. Customizability, whatever the word is. Honestly, I think it's way more important.
Yeah. So, also, you should notice that you have kind of a space station thing floating around your planet if you built a market.
Yep.
So that is your market.
Oh, nice.
How markets work in this game is quite different than a typical MMO. Instead of having a... actually, wait, before I get into that, let me just show you a little bit about the scale of the game. Press spacebar. This enters the tactical mode, tactical view mode. Now you can zoom out, and you'll see all the planets have these rings, which are the orbits. So planets actually do go orbit in the sun and everything as the game goes on. As you zoom out more, you'll notice that there is many other solar systems around you. And when the zooming out stops, it's not because there's no more to see, it's because if you load any more than that, like, the bandwidth just gets insane. But you can still use WASD to move across the galaxy, and you'll notice that solar systems just keep loading. Each solar system is about the size of I'd say about 4 typical 8v8 RTS maps, like a 4x4 of 8v8 RTS maps, just the solar system alone. And then in a galaxy, I think there was something like 26,000 solar systems.
Oh.
So you can imagine the size of a galaxy. And these gaps between the solar systems are just dead space. But you can move your ships through them and anything. It is still part of that one single map. But now, let's actually find each other. When you zoom out a bit and hover your mouse over your solar system, it should say a number and a coordinate. What is that number and coordinate?
It's a solar system 134 at -6.5.
Okay, cool. You're just next door to me then. Now, where is... If you hover your mouse over your planet, it should say, like, Ice 4, Jovian 8. What does it say there?
Ice 12.
Ice 12, okay. The 12 is what planet you are in the order, starting from next to the sun outwards. And I am going to FTL some of my ships right next to you. Okay. My small little fleet just appeared next to you.
Oh, really?
Now, yeah. I'm just to your left, I believe.
Yep. I see
Okay.
ya.
Now, notice we're not shooting at each other and stuff like that, which is a first for an RTS game. It's because we're still neutral to each other. It is an MMO. I mean, it is about warfare and all that stuff, but there's a lot of diplomatic elements. And if you notice, if you if you right-click on my units while not selecting one of your units, a menu comes up like, do you want to set me as hostile, neutral, friendly, or invite me to an alliance? And the reason why we say set as neutral, hostile, or friendly is because that's something on your client only. So if you set me as friendly, I'm not forced to set you as friendly. And alliances are the only diplomatic treaties which are enforced by the server. So if you're in an alliance, you cannot shoot at your allies. But if you set me as friendly, I can decide to shoot at you. Automatically, your PC will then set me as hostile. But the reason for this is because to prevent kind of that thing that happens in EVE quite often, where you have huge alliances that just lock down sectors of space altogether. So what we've done here, you still can do that in this game, but because an alliance has a max of 15 people, so it's almost more like a clan, you can have multiple alliances band together, but the server is not forcing those players to keep working together. So one thing that, for example, all of our alpha testers do, if alliances get too big and there's too many kind of alliances working together in a big conglomerate, what they'll end up doing is they'll actually, instead of trying to fight that conglomerate with warfare, they'll try and fight them with diplomacy. They'll start speaking to the different guys in the units and try and like build discontent amongst the alliance, and then spark a war inside the alliance. And what'll end up happening is the entire alliance, as they're so big and not organized enough, will just collapse down in fighting amongst each other. So that's kind of a balancing factor to balance out too many players binding together to try and control or dominate too much of the galaxy. It can be done, but the bigger you get, the more you try and control, the harder it gets.
I would love to see that happen, where an alliance just collapses from the inside.
One of the things that some of our alpha testers did, which I think was probably the best example of this, there was an alliance. There was a conglomerate of like 4 alliances in one of our servers, in our testing server. And what that one infiltrator did is he joined one of the alliances in the conglomerate, and then went and attacked one of the other alliances. And then before anyone figured out what was going on, he moved to another alliance and attacked another one of the alliances in the conglomerate. And the problem is no one knew that it was just one bad egg. They all thought that everyone was starting to attack each other. And because you have your alliance of 15 people, like those are the people you trust, what ends up happening is you realize you can't trust anyone else in the alliance, in their conglomerate, and the different alliances break down and start fighting each other. And this one guy took out an alliance of like 30 guys. Now they all didn't destroy their empire, but they lost control of that space because they were no longer unified. And he did that just firing like 3 shots. So it's pretty interesting, because remember, because your empire doesn't know who exactly shot you. Know someone from your own conglomerate shot at you, but you don't know exactly who unless you have a lot of unless your information side of the game, like your scanners and stuff like that, are really well evolved, and your spies and stuff. So it adds a whole new interesting twist to combating big alliances. Now, while we're going to that, why don't we actually blow each other up a little bit?
That sounds good to me.
So to do that, now your planet has a fortress shield around it, your starting planet, which means I can't shoot at what you have inside of your planet. So I'm just gonna head over this way a little bit, so you can leave and stop being a camper.
I'll just sit here and wait for you to come by.
Now, as I said, because all ships have directional armor and fire arcs and everything, the basic like strategy 101 to ship combat is to try and keep an enemy in your frontal arc and prevent them from flanking you. So, also because space is infinite, there's no way to like lock yourself up against there's no way to lock yourself up against like a back corner of the empire or something.
Yeah.
So, like, typically right now, what I would do is I would have, like, some really fast flanking fleets that are, like, half the solar system away, but behind you, and then they'll start coming in to attack you while we start right now. So halfway through the battle, all of a sudden, this whole new fleet of reinforcements would show up behind you that you had no idea were there, nor were you planning on or expecting. Now, I haven't done that now, but that's kind of like my typical tactic, because you end up getting so focused in on what's directly in front of you, you forget to have situational awareness. So, now, there's some other important points to go over with combat. Alright, here's actually one important point, which is actually what I'm going to try and do to you right now. When a ship blows up, depending on the ship's volatility, which is affected by what weapons it has on it, its engines, fuel sources, stuff like that. When it dies, it actually creates a chain reaction and a shockwave explosion that will damage the ships nearby it and also knock them back and out of position. So quite often you see people kamikazeing their soon-to-die ships into enemy fleets to try and take them out.
Are you ready for orders?
Is that your kamikaze ship right there?
That will be my kamikaze ship, yes. But also the thing is that due to the fact that the larger cannons and stuff have a slower reload time, okay, for example, what I was trying to do right now is I'm accepting the fact that ship is going to die, but you're focusing on him a lot. So that way, sure, you've taken out one of my ships, but I've been able to get the rest of my ships into much better positions and stuff like that. Now, one important thing to note. If you select a unit and then FTL it, you can select the FTL icon and have it move like that.
Whoa. Nice.
Just as the ship was about to die, I did a last-minute FTL into the middle of your formation. Now, you can't really FTL in combat too much because FTL does have a warm-up and cooldown, and you can't shoot while that's happening. But as a last-ditch attempt to do some damage to the enemy, if a ship's about to die, you can try and time it perfectly where you're warming up the FTL so it pretty much dies as soon as it exits hyperspace in the middle of your enemy fleet.
I'm just gonna try something that could be really stupid.
No, wait. Oh god, no, that's actually incredibly clever.
Of course, now I'm all turned around. Also, I'm all in one spot.
Yeah, the danger... Now, FTL is still under development a bit, so we're still adding in a lot of features to it. To spread out your fleet, you just select them all and then tell them to move, and then they'll spread out into a formation again. The FTL, there's still a lot of development going on it right now, so as that when they have to exit hyperspace, they're all right on top of each other and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of the key balancing features to FTL is that FTL will work much better defensively than offensively. The further distance that you travel with FTL, the more spread apart your fleet will get. So if you FTL like 4 systems away to somewhere you've never been before, your fleet will end up completely spread across like 2 or 3 solar systems. But if you FTL to a planet that you own, you'll arrive there in perfect formation always. So that's what I'm saying. To use it to assault another player isn't that effective. If someone else is assaulting one of your planets, you can reinforce that planet quite easily. And that's kind of a common theme throughout the whole game, is to try and why are you reversing backwards? No, don't show them.
I was just sitting there waiting to see if you would notice that.
Oh shit, and he's like really low on health right now. Now, one thing is that notice that you don't see any of my health bars and I don't see yours.
Yeah.
The reason for that is because we haven't researched proper level scanners to be able to see enemy health, or to be able to see what components you have, what ships you have, what is your total health, how much damage you've taken, stuff like that. Those all fall under, remember the utilities category on the ships? Those scanners are utilities that you can put in there.
Okay.
But once again, they cost more CP, so you probably want to have 1 or 2 like information vessels which have good scanners. But if the enemy has scanners that can tell you what components different ships have, they would obviously focus fire on those information ships, take them out as soon as possible, so you're running on not as much information. Because like right now, you don't know which one of my ships are low on health that you could kill quickly, and which ones are still full.
Ooh, did I get him?
Yeah, you killed him.
Nice. First kill.
No, second kill. Remember?
Oh yeah, well that was a suicide.
It was a bit of a suicide. Now, notice because of the directional and armor and everything. Now, when I'm exploding your ships and you're knocking back, it's really knocking you out of position, and I'm able to get some pretty good shots on your flanks and stuff. Now, right now, because we're both playing with like pretty large class ships, we are a bit of like face checking each other. It's not as good of a tactic when you have a lot of the smaller, faster ships, because the closer you are to the enemy, the easier it is for them to run around and flank you. And with these big ships, it doesn't matter because they're slow as anything. But with a small Corvette or something with some pretty decent cannons on it, they can get around you really quickly, and that can be very dangerous. But an important thing to remember with the smaller classes of ships is that, okay, when a dreadnought blows up or a battleship blows up, the ships around it are other dreadnoughts and battleships. I mean, they don't take too much damage. They have a lot of armor. But if a Corvette blows up, it can actually start chain reaction of blowing up a Corvette right next to it. And we actually, that's one of the things that our developers like to do when they're a bit bored on the server, is they set up chain reactions to like literally a dominoes effect across multiple solar systems where they blow up. I think our record so far is like 400 ships in a row.
Oh my god.
And our PC just died with 400 ships exploding and the shockwave effects and like just bits and pieces of spaceships went flying all over across 3 solar systems.
Would have loved to see that.
It was pretty funny. Someone must have recorded it. I know someone did. And also, you can launch ships at people by setting up ships to blow up in a chain reaction, and then like having it ride the shockwave forwards and stuff. I don't recommend it as a tactic, but it is very amusing. You know, while we're doing this, actually, I should go into a bit of the economy. I started on that earlier. There is no centralized market or trading facility or anything of that sort. Instead, each player builds their own market, and that's what you have hovering around your planet. Now, in those markets, you can set components, resources, anything you want up for sale or purchase. Kind of like what is it called? The docks in like an Anno game. Where you can set anything you want to buy or sell up there, and other players can come by and trade with you if they want to, or stuff like that. Where this becomes interesting is because it's completely player run in that sense, you end up with a lot of price differentiation across the galaxy. For example, in our area of the galaxy, a lot of people may like a specific kind of cannon, which means the demand for that cannon and the price will go up significantly. Where on the other end of the galaxy, nobody may really care, and they may be selling it for pretty cheap just to get it off their hands.
So it's a very organic market, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Now, another important part is that when you buy or sell something from another player, it doesn't just appear in your mailbox like an email. You actually have to load the components onto a ship that has transport bays and escort that ship successfully to one of your planets.
Jeez, you just took out two more of my guys.
Now, see, shockwaves can be very valuable if used properly. And as I said, this combat right now is pretty slow because all we have out there is the larger classes of ships, which are more, they're tanks. The DPS that they produce isn't, for the CP that they cost, the amount of DPS they produce really isn't worth it. They're more just for the survivability. But the other key point is that, as I said, every hull is just that. It's absolutely nothing until you turn it into something. Like, our same ships that we have right now could be trading ships. They could be colonization ships. They could be anything you really want them to be, depending on just how you set them up and how you design them. And, do you have any questions off the bat? Yeah.
Not particularly. Kind of interested in colonization. I don't know if you want to look into that.
Sure. So how colonization works? Actually, you have a couple. You know what I'm going to do? I am going to FTL my ships away from you quickly, and then I'm going to set you as friendly.
Immediately following the battle.
Immediately following. Now you don't have to set me as friendly, and if I walk up to you, like, your ships will start shooting at me, and they'll set you as hostile again. But what's setting you as friendly is it's just me giving an order to all of my troops to not shoot you.
Gotcha.
So that doesn't affect you in any way. All I did was I told all my ships to not shoot you at all. So now, go ahead and go into the tactical mode again. Select your ships, and FTL them to, there's a planet that's just north and a little bit east of you. The ice floor, do you see it?
Yeah.
Go ahead and FTL your ships there. There you go. No,
Oh.
you still have me as hostile.
Hang on. I'm trying to do this. Set friendly. There we go.
Awaiting
Okay.
orders.
So now, if you select your ships,
Coordinates received.
and in the bottom left command tab, the bottom left command, or the bottom right command tab, the bottom left button on that tab is planetary interactions. If you click on that, and then click on the planet, a ring menu will pop up. Left is drop troops, right is bombard the planet, and up is orbit around the planet. But as you don't own the planet and there's no enemies, you can't orbit or bombard it. But you can drop troops on it. Now, when you drop troops, you'll notice small drop pods coming out of your ships and flying towards the planet's surface. And once you have dropped troops, you'll notice a countdown timer of when your forces are going to engage whatever defending forces are on that planet.
It's stuck at 5 seconds.
Hmm?
I think it's supposed to be what... Is that what's supposed to be happening? I don't think it is. It
What
says,
happened?
3 troops engaging in 5 seconds. And it's not changing.
Oh, click away from the planet and then click the planet again?
Oh, okay.
You just captured the planet. That's why. No, it doesn't. If you still have the planet refreshed, the planet selected, it doesn't refresh it. But
Gotcha.
now, if you double click on that planet, you'll go onto the surface of that planet and you can start building it up and everything. Now, as there was nothing defending that planet, your troops didn't have anything to engage with. The reason why now, the population system is kind of the XP system and the level system and the core balancing element in the whole game. How it works is the longer you've owned a planet, the more population it has. Building the number of facilities you can have on a planet is determined by the population of a planet. And to produce military units to load into your troop transport base and stuff, it converts a percentage of your population. Now, on top of that, the more population of a planet, a certain percentage of a planet's population can be recruited in the case of emergency as militiamen to defend the planet. Which means that a planet that I've owned for a really long time will take you a lot of troops to try and capture from me. A significant amount of troops, and you'll probably have to do it in multiple waves. Whereas a planet that I've just captured, you can capture fairly easily from me again. The reason for this is, it actually ties into the whole going offline and what happens to your empire when you're offline.
Gotcha.
Because when you're offline, an AI that we call Overwatch takes over your empire, and you can customize Overwatch to like what do you want your fleets to do and stuff like that. But of course, AI is never as good as a player in an RTS game, ever. So what we've done to counteract that is that when you lose ships, when Overwatch, 15 to 30 minutes after you log out, whenever you lose any ships that Overwatch is controlling, Overwatch will respawn them into waves at little to no cost to the player. So, now, how this all congeals together is that if you come and try and attack a planet that I've owned for a really long time, it's going to take you a lot of work and a lot of time, and you'll have to hold off multiple waves of my fleet coming after you, controlled by the AI. If you successfully manage to capture it, worst case scenario, I come back on the next day, I still have all of my military forces. I've lost the planet, but you haven't owned the planet for very long. You can use all my facilities and all that, but the population is still loyal to me. So I recapture it as if the population is next to 0 because you haven't owned it for very long. And when I recapture it, I get all of my population back.
Point locked. Moving out.
So what ends up happening is that the newer planets and the planets on the frontiers of the players' empires will trade hands a lot. But the planets deep in the core of your empire that are really critical to the success and the backbone of your empire are much harder to take, and if someone does take them, you can retake them fairly easily.
I got you.
So we're not, and as I said, as you can build ships quickly, you can capture planets fairly easily, and the game is fairly fast-paced. The point isn't to make it really hard to do things or impossible. The point is that if something goes bad, you can recover from it pretty easily. Because that's a lot more fun. I mean, sure, you can lose, you can come back online and have lost 3 planets. But because they just captured them, the population isn't very high, and within your first hour of being back online, you can recapture all your planets. Sure, you'll have to clean them up a little bit, fix up the things that they broke in the process. But it's a much more fast-paced, dynamic environment. It's not like, oh, now I have to rebuild 3 whole planets and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea.
We are ready for orders. Comms are clear.
It's really obnoxious when you have games where you have to spend way too much time just rebuilding what you lost when you were gone.
Yeah, exactly. And the even bigger thing that we wanted to avoid with that is it doesn't promote fun gameplay. The thing is, if losing a planet was such a big deal, if losing a ship was such a big deal, we'd never go to war.
Yeah.
And that would create a really boring, stagnant environment. And also, when we did go to war, we'd never make peace. Because you had done so much damage to me that, like, why would I ever go to peace with you? But if we go to war and okay, we trade a few planets, we lose 20 to 30 fleets or something like that, it's not a big deal. We can recover that quite easily. So in that case, if we reach the point where like, hey, you know, let's actually team up together against this guy, he's a lot bigger threat to both of us. Because we really didn't do that much damage to the core of each other's empire just yet, it's a lot more it's a lot easier to get people to agree to that. Now, one of the things that we actually get a lot of people asking about is that it's clear that the game is designed to be more persistent and stuff, but what about the more like really hardcore elements of being able to utterly thrash players and stuff like that and destroy all their plans, capture everything? We have considered that, and we will be including that in a form of the game, which I'll be going into a bit later, and we're actually going to be announcing exactly what that feature is this Saturday on a live stream and showing it. It's actually kind of a cool story. Just 3 days ago, one of our backers came to us and was like, hey, I mean, what about this? Have you thought about having like a really hardcore aspect of the game for the people who really want like a no holds barred, just brutal marsh pit of a space sim empire building game? And then they actually brought it up in the middle of one of our developer meetings, and we started talking about it, and the next thing we realized that, you know, first of all, it's an awesome feature idea, and we actually can implement it incredibly easily. And within 4 days from a backer coming up with an idea for a feature, like, we're going to be doing a live stream announcing the feature and like actually showing off the feature that the backer just came up with the idea of, implemented and working in the game.
Nice.
So I mean, we're all gamers. I mean, I was studying veterinary science before I started this. I was never planning to get into game development, but I really wanted to play this kind of game, and that's how all of the team really came together. Okay, most of them are professional developers and come from working on titles like Sins of a Solar Empire and stuff like that.
You got guys from Sins?
Yeah, actually, the guy who's designed all of our spaceships and done most of the 3D artwork for the entire game was one of the original lead artists on Sins.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. And it's, well, as I was saying, I mean, we're all gamers, and we're here to make the game that we all really want to play, and we're not, I mean, we're completely willing to show our mistakes, show what we're doing, show what we're working on, and also really excited when people give us new ideas that are good. And if we like, and yeah, we'll implement them right off the bat. It's a great idea. And sure, we didn't think of that, but like, we're very humble. It doesn't hurt our pride that someone else came up with a better game design than us. We just put it in the game.
It's always really nice when developers do that. That seems to be more of an indie developer thing than anything.
I think part of it is because a professional developer, well, professional, I mean, we work like 30 hours a day, so I definitely count as professional now, as we've been doing it for 7 years with a team of, I think our team's now like 25 developers. So I mean, we are incredibly indie, but at the same time, for an indie studio, we have a pretty good sized team, but we are tackling a pretty massive project. But what was I doing on there? Oh, yeah. With the part of the reason is because most indies develop with more of an agile form of development, where they're planning ahead more like what they're planning on doing just then, and not so much planning into the like planning 2 or 3 years into the future development of the game. Because of that, I think that it makes it a lot easier for us to change our development plans and add in new features that we weren't originally considering doing.
I'm not liking what's going on here.
We are ready for orders.
Where do you think you're going?
Guns are clear.
I'm drastically outnumbered here, but there's only one way to go out. It's going to be going out fighting.
Guns are clear.
Oh, also, if you want to zoom in on one specific chip and lock your camera on it, you can just select it and press F.
Guns are clear.
Oh, okay. Do you guys have any sort of like cinematic camera, or do you have plans for that at all?
Yeah, we have been we're considering adding there, and there is a way to turn off the HUD. I just forgot what it was at the moment. We will be adding in more cinematic cameras and stuff like that as we finish polishing up our graphics. I mean, as gamers, I mean, our first priority was to make a seamless, persistent MMORPG that plays well and is fun to play and all that. And then after that, we can get to work on all the graphics. I mean, gameplay is a lot more important than graphics to us.
As it should be.
And the one thing I am just gonna get completely mastered here. Also, I already noticed I just got a warning, like one of my dreadnoughts, one of my battleships just ran out of ammo. That's another thing. Instead of having upkeep costs for units, units have supplies, which is ammo, fuel, energy for shields, everything. And you have to dock them onto your planets to resupply them.
Gotcha.
Now, a ship will never run out of fuel to the point where it can't move, but there can be other downsides to it, such as not being able to turn on your shields, not having any more ammo to shoot, stuff like that.
We've taken out an enemy target.
Oh god.
While we're doing this, I'm just casually starting to build things on the planet.
Now this is kind of the core build of the game that we have done and working, as you can see, but there's a lot of things we want to add in, especially in the Kickstarter stretch goals. Like, one of the first ones is capital ships, which we actually have kind of halfway built into the game, but it still requires quite a bit of work. But what capital ships are, it's an individual ship. You can only ever have one active at a time, but they're effectively like your avatar in the game and a typical MMO character. I mean, they have a lot of skills, they have abilities, they have levels up and upgrades you can get for them, and they can really affect how you play the game. And and you can get a capital ship that fits your playstyle. You can also have multiple capital ships, but you can only have one active at a time, so you can go switching between, like, maybe a capital ship that's much better for exploration and stuff like that. If you get in combat, kind of head back to your home planet, switch to one that's better for warfare, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And one of the other ones, which made me think of the planetary thing, is that we want to add in full 3D planets, like through full 3D planet surfaces, where you can actually give orders to the troops that you're landing on the planet to disable and destroy specific facilities on the planets, and you can also select your ships in space to bombard certain troops and buildings on planets and stuff like that.
Nice. So currently, when you're doing actual planetary warfare, is it just automatic, or?
Yeah, currently it's just statistics based on how many units I have on the planet, how many units you have on the planet, and what facilities are on the planet, and what type of planet it is. For example, some races get specific benefits in assaulting different kinds of planets. Like, for example, humans are not really that great at assaulting, like, lava planets and stuff, so we did a bit of a debuff, whereas Terran planets, both assaulting and defending, were much better at.
Gotcha.
So it also motivates different players that are playing different races to go for different kinds of planets. And now one thing is oh Jesus Christ, I'm getting massacred. One ship left. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize I destroyed that many of them.
Yeah. Come on.
Run away!
I
What?
can't fight it.
Oh man.
Oh, also one thing that we're polishing up and it has a few bugs in it is fighters. The way fighters work is that you have fighter launch platforms and fighter bays, which you equip on your ships.
Okay.
But on top of that, fighters, instead of them being like a bombing mission or something like that, like you would expect in like Protoss carriers and stuff, where it's just a way of doing damage, instead of that, you actually give missions to fighters. For example, you can give fighters offensive missions, like an offensive counter space mission, which, actually I should clarify this. One of the members on our team is a retired US Air Force 2-star Major General.
Whoa.
And he has something like 3,000 or 4,000 flying hours. He was a stealth fighter pilot, and he helped us. He originally joined the team and was helping teaching us about what is warfare and what is diplomacy and what are these elements, because he taught at the U.S. war colleges for up and coming generals. And so he kind of gave us that rundown of those courses and taught us about like the main core element of DIME, which is diplomacy, information, military, and economy, which are like the 4 core elements of what is strategy and what is running an empire, and that we've integrated into the game. But on top of that, he actually had a lot of fun and helped design pretty much our entire fighter system. So there's a lot of versatility in the fighters. So for example, you can have a fighter squadron that you give what's called an offensive counter space mission, which is you send the fighters out, they will circle an enemy ship, and they will try and take out engines, weapons, easy soft targets that do a lot of damage. They won't do any damage to the actual health of the ship, but they'll reduce its reload speed, reduce its damage output, reduce its movement speed, all those things. You can also have short-range defensive and long-range defensive missions, where you have your fighters like circling your own ships, intercepting enemy fighters and missiles and stuff like that. So in that one situation, fighters can be a debuff for an enemy or a shield for you, and you can also use them for straight-up bombing and strafing missions, in which case they're just like a typical weapon in the game that does offensive damage. You can also use them as scouts to increase your line of sight and view range. So it's a real... whereas the weapons and the beams and cannons and stuff like that, you have to design ahead of time for the battle. Your fighters are kind of like your last minute thing that you can give critical missions to in the middle of combat, and they're like kind of like your versatility. I really need to build a couple more ships.
So are fighters implemented yet, or are they still just
they're in the game, but they're a bit buggy. There's a few issues with the fighter-on-fighter AI combat, which lags the server like hell. So we're still sorting all that out. But they will be in the game.
Okay.
And I think we deprecated them for this build. So I don't think yeah, no, I don't think they're available in this one. Actually, no, I'm gonna try it. Let's give it a go. See what happens.
Just a friendly reminder of all of us at home, this is still an alpha.
Yes.
Very much in progress, so even if it does look like it could be a full game.
Thank you. Okay, so let me put a couple of fighter. I just noticed that the fighter launch port component is actually still in the game, so let's give it a shot. Let's see if it works.
All right.
Carrier. Build myself a carrier. Okay, that's saved. Yeah, so I'm trying to think what other honestly it's to the point where there's so many features, there's so many different ways you can play the games and elements to it that I get lost at times.
That's just how you know it's very complex, which is good usually.
I mean, the thing is that we designed it like the way gamers would design it. Like, you know, I mean, every gamer knows that experience when we're playing a game and we just like, you know what, this would be so cool. Like, why didn't the developers put this in? It really should have put this in. It would have been awesome if they would have. And that's how we designed this game. Just every time we got an idea like that, we actually did it.
That's one of the things I would love to do with game design. It's just the complete freedom to do whatever you want.
Okay. Unfortunately, I can't have an FTL assembly and fighter bay on the ship that I decided to make as my fighter hull class. Oh, I also forgot to put engines on them. Oh, I'm an idiot.
Nice.
let me redo that design. Okay, remember to put engines on it this time. Okay, I'm going to use a different hull class that can use an FTL assembly. So yeah, honestly, I've really enjoyed making this game. I mean, it's been a really long road, but it's so rewarding being able to play the game that you always wanted to play. It is cool now that it's like finally come together, and I'm playing with other people, and it's a lot of fun.
Did you ever think it would get to this point where you have, a team of 25 people, you've got this massive MMORTS going on?
I originally thought that I would be able to do this really easily in about 4 months with like $20,000. I was like, yeah, I can totally make an MMO. I know exactly what I'm doing. And a hard reality shock there. But I guess it was it was kind of like a blessing and a curse that I didn't know what I was doing and didn't know what I was getting into, because I learned as I was going. So, you know, each month I'd find out, you know, actually we really need about 4 more months of development on this. And because of that, it was never like that outright shock that, oh my god, this is going to take 7 years of my life. I am like, when my facial hair comes in, it will come in gray from the lack of sleep and the stress. Like, if I would have known that from the start, I never would have actually probably done it. And because of that, I'm so grateful that I didn't know it in the beginning. Because now, having done it, I'm really, really pleased. But if you ask me now, would I do it again? Like, I don't know. Like, if I knew everything that I knew, if I knew from the start everything that I know now about how hard it was and all this, it's not easy. Indie development is not easy in any way. And, you know, my hat's off to every single indie developer. I mean, everyone. Doesn't matter if you're making a tiny-ass little simple iPhone game or an MMO. Oh god, you captured... Oh yeah, you found my outpost.
I may have been capturing every planet while you've been talking.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so I'm gonna send my little dreadnought carriers over there just to demo how it works. If it works, let's see. Okay, so... the carriers are here. Now let us see.
Are you ready for orders?
I don't think...
Anticipation is killing me.
Yeah, and I'm trying to see here. Unfortunately, I don't think it's letting me launch my fighters. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they were actually deprecated. Someone just left the component in there. Anyway, this is the Dreadnought class, the human Dreadnought class of ship, which I just love. This is like one of the favorite ships that our 3D artist, the guy from Sims, created. Like when I first saw the concept art for this ship, I'm like, this is a Dreadnought. I think it was originally meant to be like a battleship or something. I was like, no, just put more engines, make it look bigger. I want this ship.
Put more on it.
There's more everything. But no, it's been a great experience. Oh wait. Oh wait a minute.
What?
Offensive, counter-offensive. Let's see. Does it launch the fighters? Did it launch the fighters?
I don't see any fighters.
Oh, I just got the menu to come up.
Nav point locked. Moving out.
No, it's not. Let me try a short. Yeah, no, it's not launching the fighters. Oh well.
It was worth a try.
It was worth a try. So yeah, it's been a great experience, but it's you know, there's been so many moments in there where just like no one believed it could happen, and I don't blame them. I mean, if I was them, I would also say the same thing. Because when you're doing something that's completely new, especially like when it came to publishers and stuff, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of publishers over the years, and they had all like immediately they all loved the game when they first see it. I mean, we won a lot of awards at PAX 2012. Sorry, we won like best RTS and most innovative game, and
nice.
A lot of people have liked the game, but it's still like, you know, I still think the best quote was one of someone who worked for a publishing house that I met at like the first PAX I ever went to. That actually ended up becoming pretty good friends with the guy. He's a quite nice guy, despite working for a publisher. He said, you know, every single publisher in the industry knows about your game, but it's all kind of the same thing. We all just sit there looking at it like, huh. And like, if they can actually pull this off, this would be incredible. But no one's actually really. Everyone's hesitant to make the first step of like, okay, I think this is gonna work. I'm gonna back this because it's never been done before.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it has been. You have stuff like Beyond Protocol and Mankind, but again, that was in a much different era, a different scale, and now in the whole new generation of graphics and computer games and stuff, we haven't seen anything like this for a lot of years, and so it's kind of like venturing off into where no one's ever done stuff before. Oh, actually, wait a minute. I just realized that I need to explain how research works. Research, we have no tech trees. How research works, if you
Calm down, though. That's a pretty crazy claim.
It is pretty crazy. Let me get to this. And I actually think that no game has ever had a research system like this. So let's see. I mean, you made a comment, someone clarifying and stuff, but I think that this is actually pretty innovative. Anyway, if you go onto the surface of your planet that has a research center, and double-click on the research center, well, it says laboratory on the top.
Yeah.
Okay, you should see an interface terminal that says theories, prototypes, and research sectors. Along the top.
Yeah.
The UI terminal. Okay, cool. So on the left, you have theories. Theories are an idea that someone in your empire has had. Okay? There's nothing more than that. It's someone got an idea. Ooh, I wonder what happens if we light this on fire. Now, you can select a theory, and then select a research sector, and click Add to Research on the bottom right. And now, what you've told all the scientists in that research center to start lighting it on fire and see what happens. Now, out of this, something will come up. You'll get something. Whether it's an idea for a prototype, whether it's a breakthrough of some other sense, whether it's a way to make all of your factories 5% more efficient. It could be a new ship hull, it could be a new type of weapon or something, but it would be a breakthrough from that. And you have no idea what it is while you're researching it. And then you can research the prototypes are the next level of breakthrough. And sometimes you'll just come up with prototypes. Now, the theories and prototypes you get randomly and from events. So, for example, if you're in combat and you get a crit hit on an enemy dreadnought and blow it up in one hit, most likely, like, someone on your ship would get an idea on how to make your engines a lot less susceptible to explosions, because you'll see the weak spot of the enemy engines. Stuff like that, and that could unlock theories and prototypes right away. But it is all randomized of what you get. Now, what this means is that a player who just joined the game, his very first research that he unlocks could be something that a veteran player who's been playing the game for 10 years still doesn't have. And what that means is that every single player in the universe has something that the other one could want, and you have stuff that he could want, and he has stuff that you could want. And so this really opens up the abilities for trade and stuff, because you can't trade technologies. But as we saw with the weapons and engines and shields, maybe I can produce an engine that you really want. You can't produce it, but now we'll have a long-standing trade agreement. We'll all produce 5,000 of these engines for you, like, every week, and send them over to you, and in return, whatever our agreement is. And that way, every player has something they can offer to other players. And the other important thing about this is that this way, the game will never run out of research. We can produce thousands of new technologies, hulls, prototypes, everything, like, per week. And we actually have trackers to see, like, how much of the entire database of research people have unlocked in the game. And if people get too close to unlocking everything, we'll just add in another, like, 4,000 more theories and prototypes. So no matter what, there's always more to research. And also, what the benefit of this is, it means that when a new player joins the game, there's a much higher chance that he will unlock something that an old player doesn't have. Because when he joins the game, when an older player joins the game, there'll be, let's say, 100 researches. So let's say he's researched 80 researches of those now. A new player joins the game, and we add in 1,000 more. So the new player now has 1,100 researches that he could possibly unlock, whereas only 80 of them the old player has. So there's a much higher percentage he'll get something the older player doesn't have, once again, giving him something to trade with other players.
Nice.
And also, like everything in the game, technology and information, just like with resources and with components, actually exist. So if someone captures my planet, they not only will get the resources and the components that are on that planet, but they will also get any of the theories that I have in my laboratories.
It's kind of like they're capturing the scientists.
Exactly, you're capturing the scientists and all that stuff. Now, things that I have already researched and prototyped and released, they won't get, because the information is no longer held in the laboratories. But stuff like the theories and stuff that you can research, everything that you have on queue that you can research in a laboratory or that you have researched, so stuff like that can be captured. And also, I mean, coming from Command and Conquer, I mean, in Command and Conquer, the grass is always greener on the other side. I mean, of all the units you could building the units that the enemy has is always the best. So capturing parts of the enemy's bases, throwing engineers into their MCVs and stuff, and building a base that's their race is always better. And so I wanted to really include that in the game. And how it works here is that if you capture an alien planet, you can, that's not your race, you can actually still work all those facilities. You can't build more of them, but you could produce everything that that planet could produce up until that point. So you could actually have a human fleet that has a couple of alien dreadnoughts in it.
Nice.
And you can even research alien tech to advance down their tech trees. But instead of being able to generate theories, like how I said, you generate theories randomly and over time based on how many research centers you have, and also through incidents on like battlefields, capturing planets, things that you've observed. Whereas with alien tech, you can only get research through like salvaging enemy ships, capturing salvaging alien ships, capturing alien planets, and combat with that alien race in space. So it's a lot harder to research the stuff from the alien races, but you can actually still do it. So you could end up having a race that's actually like an amalgamy of all 5 races.
Now that's something I want to aim for.
Yes. And that, but the one thing is, no matter what, you can never build alien buildings. So if you do manage to capture an alien planet, it is paramount to your empire that you defend it properly. Because if you do lose it, you can't rebuild those buildings.
Speaking of capturing planets, is that your only planet that you have right now?
Yes, yeah, it is.
So capturing it would not be a good idea.
Well, you can't actually. That brings up the fortress shield point. My home planet has a fortress shield around it, so you cannot capture it. Now, there's a couple things that this brings up right off the bat, which is that first of all, the when I build a fortress shield, okay. If you destroy and capture my entire empire, and all that's left is this planet that you can't capture, but it's in the middle of your empire, and you want to get rid of it, because I can still build stuff in the middle of your damn empire. So that actually adds another element to the game, which is the fact that when it gets to that point, the only way to truly defeat another player is with diplomacy. Because you get me to this point, you say, look, you want me out of your system. You can't force me to do it. The only way I can do it is if I decide to voluntarily. So after the war is over and you've clearly beaten me, you have to somehow convince me to capture some other planet somewhere else in the galaxy, build a new fortress shield there, and destroy the fortress shield on my home planet. Gotcha. So that I can let you take it. So once again, that comes up with the whole point is like, if you play like an outright troll against someone and really are incredibly aggressive and really pissing them off, when you reach that final point of being able to destroy them, they have to agree to it. It's almost like what is that reality TV show? Survivor. You know, the last stages of Survivor, where, you know, the people who actually decide whether you get voted off or not are like the last people who were there. So if you treated them all really badly to try and get ahead, it comes back to bite you in the end. So that same kind of thing.
Gotcha. Really loving the diplomacy system you have built up here. Really interested to see how it's actually going to play once I, you know, start playing it with other players.
Yeah, well, one thing is Thursdays we have big like stress testing sessions and stuff. So I do recommend definitely hopping on Thursdays. There's people on almost always, but on Thursdays we got a lot of people on the servers and just go nuts.
All right. I'll definitely keep that in mind. And to all those who are watching, if I remember correctly, paying enough on the Kickstarter will get you instant access, right?
Yep. Yeah. Into our Infiltrator program. Now, Infiltrator program does not only mean you get instant access to the game, but you actually get access to the development server as well, which means you'll always be there testing new races, new expansions, everything before it goes out to the general public, and you actually give feedback on those features, like as we're working on them and playing with the developers. Just don't.
Yeah. So I'll put a link in the I'll put in the link in the description to the Kickstarter, so that people can, you know, check it out there too. Otherwise, I feel like we covered a lot, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot to cover, and I always forget something, but out of it.
I'm sure I'll figure it out as I play.
Okay, cool. So I need to head off to another meeting. But
all right.
It was a real pleasure talking to you, and
you as well.
Best of luck in space.
All right, thank you. All right, see you later, dude.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks a lot for everything, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Cheers.
All right, well.
Have fun. Oh.
Yeah. What? I'm just gonna finish my video.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Have a great time, mate.
Yeah, you too. Alright, so this is Novus AEterno. Eterno, I believe, not Eterna. I'm so stupid if I'm getting that wrong. It's available on Kickstarter currently, though it will be finished, they promise, within 6 months. That's what they're saying, is they're estimating for the final release of this MMO RTS. I'm very interested in playing this game. I hope you are too. And if you are, I would love to see you in this game. I'd love to make an alliance with you so we can rule the galaxy together. Just saying. That'll be enough for today, though. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.